and get started. So welcome everyone to our Housing Task Force meeting this evening. The purpose of the task force is to inform and engage members of the League, as well as all communities around the state, to promote collective actions around housing issues as they are strongly aligned with our state League position. By increasing the understanding and importance of this issue through education, the task force hopes to influence public policy and legislation at all levels through advocacy while speaking with one League voice. I'd like to recognize this evening, before we start, the members of the Legislative Action Committee who are wrapping up their work and will be providing a summary of bills passed that will impact housing going forward. Those members are Kathy Smith, Joe Federer, and Kate Van Houten, as well as Andrea Wilkins, who is the legislative liaison for our League. They do a heavy lift during the session, reading, discussing, and making decisions to support or not support bills based on League positions. So thanks, Kathy, Joe, Kate, and Andrea.
Tonight, Trish, may I interrupt? I'm terribly sorry. We do have a legislative wrap-up on Wednesday, May 21st. All are welcome. Please register on the LWVCO web calendar.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So tonight we are honored to have Allison George, the Division of Housing Director with DOLA. After 15 years of service, she will be retiring October 15th per an announcement made today. So congratulations, Allison. Her work and commitment have significantly impacted the state's housing landscape, creating and preserving 20,000 affordable housing units, over 2,500 home ownership units, and supporting 64,000 plus Coloradoans with emergency housing assistance. She is known as a leader with unwavering commitment to the people of Colorado. So we look forward to hearing your insights, Allison, into the housing challenges going forward in Colorado and any other housing info you can share with us. So if everyone makes sure their microphones are muted to avoid any background noises, we'll turn it over to Allison.
Thank you so much, Trish. I really appreciate that introduction. And yes, surprise, surprise. Just last week, we did announce my retirement from the state. It is my absolute favorite job, having the opportunity to talk to folks like you about the important issues around housing. So there is a time, and this is my time. And so I have great confidence in the trajectory of the Division of Housing and the leadership and staff that we have. And so with all of those things coming together, I felt like it was time. So today I'll be presenting all of the great things that have been happening at the state, actually. So like we said, I'm Allison George. I've been the director now for 10 years. Been at the state for 15. And so we've seen a tremendous amount of change during that time. And so we'll be talking through some of that today. So let's see if I can.
Allison, before you get started, will you make your slides available to us?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Let's see if there we go. Okay. So before I get started about the Division of Housing, I just want to really highlight the fact that the department has 5 different divisions, actually. The Division of Housing being one of those, where we provide affordable housing for construction, for acquisition, for rehabilitation. We have the Office of Homeless Initiatives, where we provide support and solutions toward ending homelessness. We provide eviction prevention services all through the Division of Housing and many more things. The Division of Local Government provides the support for local governments in whatever needs they have. So smaller rural type organizations, local governments, we provide technical assistance to help them answer those different challenging questions that they have throughout the state. Things like one person that wears all hats for all aspects of local government needs. We have regional support that can help those local governments solve those questions that they have. We also have the Division of Property Taxation. and the Board of Assessment Appeals, and then the State Demography Office. These are all services that the state provides to help support our local governments and our local communities. Here we go. Thinking though about housing, how we got here. So we've seen a lot of change, not just at the Division of Housing. The Division of Housing has been responding to the demands for housing. Where we have gotten, it's because we have seen booms and busts of growing and building housing products. So you can see here in this chart that in 2008, when the Great Recession hit, the blue bars are showing the total housing units that are being constructed, okay? You can see from 2008, we had a significant dive where we were not producing as much housing. We already had a great need for affordable housing units at that time, but with the Great Recession, we stopped building new housing. The black line that you can see, this is the annual change in household population. So you can see that we still had more households being formed throughout the state. What happened during the Great Recession is it exacerbated this mismatch of housing product and households. And so what that means is that the affordability became even harder for Coloradans to afford. People moving into our state, not as many affordable homes. More recently, since 2018, you can see that we've been building more though, but we still have not caught up. We are still 70,000 units behind what the state needs in order to have a balanced housing market. And when I talk about a balanced housing market, it's important to note, just because you might have the product, it might not be affordable to the people that live in our state, work in our state. So it's important that as we build and we build more, that we're also trying to match what the housing demands are for the people that live here. So the realities of our housing market, it's important to note, local control. So at the local level, with zoning, with our TAP and impact fees, our design and building codes, these all impact how we can efficiently develop housing. Insurance rates, you're seeing this around the country between condo defects and homeowner and commercial insurance because of changes in our market between wildfires, hail damage. These things all drive up the cost of insurance. Funding. Interest rates are going up. And so as interest rates go up, it's harder to purchase a home. It's harder to get a construction loan so that you can build new housing. These things all drive up the cost of housing. Then our market factors, I mentioned interest rates. Then we also talk about trade and labor costs. And then, of course, the time that it takes to do all of this. It takes 2 to 5 years to actually purchase land, get your plans approved, actually construct the housing. This takes time. And as time moves on, we have more people moving to the state. We have more households being formed, which then continues to drive up these costs. So these are the things that are impacting all of us in our communities that we're trying to remedy through different policies and funding sources at the state level. There we go. So what's the state done? Having difficulty advancing my slides, so excuse me. I think you could see my whole screen. Every single time I touch something, something different comes up. Okay, so for policies, we've passed several different bills. So House Bill 24-1313, that provided $35 million for DOLA infrastructure projects for housing. It also created $25 million in tax credits for CHFA. It was all related to transportation or transit-oriented communities in particular. So these are all things trying to develop more housing near transit areas so that people don't always have to be in a car, but also improving or increasing the density around these transit centers so that people can utilize that transportation more efficiently. Minimum parking requirements with House Bill 24-1304 eliminates the parking minimums for new multifamily housing near rail stations and frequent bus service routes. And then Senate Bill 24-174 actually funded housing needs assessments and action plans. And this was really focused on helping communities understand what their needs are so that they could target and they could provide the housing that's specific for their community that they need. And then with House Bill 1152, that provided funding for accessory dwelling units. So it's not a silver bullet that's one thing that's gonna satisfy our housing needs. It's gonna be a collaboration and a collection of all of these solutions coming together to help improve our housing stock or housing availability. Oh, I got it this time. This is great. So glad that it worked this time. So with funding, we have Prop 123. We have infrastructure dollars. I just mentioned those with House Bill 1313. We've improved transparency and predictability, better coordination with our state funders, the middle income funding sources like MEAP, and then also the Middle Income Housing Authority. And then innovative housing incentives, the IHIP program that's being done by our partner agency over at OEdit. So these are all ways that the voters, actually, I should say, with Prop 123, they voted to increase these funding sources for the state for affordable housing solutions, from land banking, equity resources, funding focused on homelessness, funding focused on home ownership, really trying to provide solutions across the spectrum for what our housing needs are. So we're also looking at our processes because through the pandemic, what we heard was it is great that more funding can be provided, but if you can't efficiently and effectively provide that funding to expedite things and expedite projects, the development of projects, it slows things down. And so we have been looking at our projects and our funding for contracting and applications, and we've been improving our timelines. So we went from over 240 days during the pandemic to 137, so a reduction of 42% in timing. And if you take out the time that it's with a borrower, just the time that it's in the Division of Housing's hands, we're down to 27 days. So we've made tremendous improvements focusing on our efficiencies that we're very excited about. With Proposition 123, the voters voted on this, and what they're looking for is fast tracking affordable housing projects and moving these projects through the local approval processes faster. So 90-day fast tracking. Oops. Oh, I'm slow on moving slides at once, and then all of a sudden I figured it out and I zoom right through them all. Excuse me. Investment in innovative building technologies. So this is with our partners at OEdit, incentivizing factory-built housing because we know that it can be done more efficiently in a factory. When you look at how we build things, this is one industry that we have not seen significant changes. If you were to go in a factory, you're still going to see somebody with a hammer. These are the way we build things. So looking at what efficiencies we can do, because we know we can still do it faster in a factory because we can streamline processes and build things more quickly when it's all together in a factory. And then we're also investing in an AI pilot, which I will share a little bit more about. There we go again. I did it again. Okay, so we are, in fact, we're first in the nation, which is incredibly exciting. Archistar. So we are working with Archistar in our building codes and standards. So we're looking at our plan reviews, because if we can streamline the plan review process, we can move things faster on the approval side. So this is one aspect of what we're doing, because as the statewide building official for the state, we actually review and approve all housing plans for our housing that's going to be built in a factory. Okay. So we are looking at the plans that we review. We're partnered with Archistar, and we're reviewing how, well, we're having them use AI actually to streamline how that process is done, and make it more efficient. That does not take the human out. AI is a tool in this regard. So we can use this as a tool to expedite the process, but we still have to review to verify that these things are completed as anticipated or planned for with the plan reviews. Okay, so at this point in time, 17% of all plans that come to us have to be sent back to the builder or the architect that has submitted the plans. With the AI, we're looking to bring this percentage down. We are also partnered with the city of Greeley, and this is on their permit process. And so we're really excited to pilot this AI process to expedite the permitting so that we can get more housing more quickly through our local government processes. And so Greeley is our partner right now that we're partnered with to expedite the permitting process. Okay, so we also, because with the plan review, with the local government reviews, and fast tracking is a requirement of Prop 123 to get that within 90 days. We're providing an incentive to local governments. Well, we'll provide a local planning capacity grant if local governments are able to adopt prior to December 31st the expedited development review process. They'll get a $50,000 grant. If they can do it by June 30th, 2026, it's dependent on how much funding is available. We'll also provide an incentive funding. We just don't know how much will be left at that point. And we're putting $2 million up for this incentive program. So we're really excited to see this process going forward and hopeful that more local governments will sign on and fast track their plan approval processes. Okay, so what have we done? So this is the Division of Housing in particular. I did mention that the Division of Housing had gotten a significant amount of funds during the pandemic. We actually had $1.5 million during the pandemic. And it did slow down our processes quite a bit, but we are still able to get a significant amount done. So we were able to create or preserve almost 20,000 units. We also were able to fund, create, or preserve over 2,500 units. With emergency rental assistance, over 64,000 households that we served, being able to help them stay in their homes during the pandemic. And with emergency mortgage assistance, over 8,600 households. So the Division of Local Government, also with DOLA, since January 2020, we have awarded over $150 million toward housing. So DLG, they fund the infrastructure for housing, among other things as well. And then they also provide planning grants. And so you can see what their impact has been with these dollars. And then for affordable housing units, they've contributed to almost 10,000 units. And then local governments, they supported 202 between community planning, zoning, land use reforms, and permitting times. So technical assistance for those. I feel like I've kind of flown through this, so I apologize for being so quick, I think. These are our QR codes for our regional specialists. You can see here with the Colorado map, the different regions. And if you use the QR code, you can do the housing development specialists or the regional managers. And the regional managers are our local government regional managers to provide support. And then we also have the housing development specialists that are with the Division of Housing. So I'm happy to go back to any particular slides that people want to talk about.
Yeah, great. I don't know. Let me see if anyone has put any questions into chat, Allison. No, it's mainly making sure that everybody gets a hold of those slides at the end. But if there's anyone with questions, if you just raise your hand, we will get them to you. I'm going to start out, Allison, by just asking, when you talk about the factory-built homes and the regulations, I think they're heading towards developing a set of standards that could be used statewide rather than each local entity having to come up with their own. But if you could talk a little bit more about that, I'm wondering about the interest in creating more of those factories. My understanding is right now those are mainly over on the western slope. So if you could just talk a little bit about that whole factory-built housing.
Absolutely. So Senate Bill 002, and I'm not going to be able to talk about all bills, by the way, but I can talk about this one. So Senate Bill 002 passed this year, and what it does is it creates regional housing codes for factory-built housing. And so DOH will be charged with implementing the regional codes. We work with a technical advisory board that advises us on what codes should be put into place. And the reason that they're regional versus one statewide code is there's a significant difference, like in snow loads. That's one that folks know, compared Front Range, compared to like the mountains. And so the regional codes will take into consideration the differences that we have in building needs in the different regions. And so once the new fiscal year starts, we'll start that process for determining what those regional codes should be. And that will be done with the advice from the technical advisory committee that we have. Any particular other questions with that?
Well, I'm just wondering, are you hearing about an interest in building more factories for manufactured housing?
Yes, actually, we also certify factories. And so we have had new factories come online here on the Front Range. And something else that other folks, there are a couple 3D printing companies as well that have started up. And so there are a couple in particular. One that I'm thinking of is in Greeley and working with the Greeley Habitat to 3D print some of the housing. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. All right. So let's go to Jimmy.
Hi, Allison. So nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Um, well, you know me, I'm very interested in low income housing here in Pueblo, Colorado, and you know we have an extreme shortage here. Um, is it is Pueblo signed up for the 123 funding? Last time I heard they were, but then I looked at the list at our meeting and I couldn't find Pueblo on the list.
I do believe they are. It is on our website too, and so I will just double check that Pueblo is.
And what kind of advice could you give us for creating some more low income and extremely low income housing?
Well, I think right now with the effort with the housing needs assessments, I think it's important to be involved in those housing needs assessments. Find out who in the community is a part of that, so that you can help influence how that is going to be rolled out. Because that's kind of that tool that your local government officials will look to in determining how they want to focus, likely on housing development in the future, is what I would say. And then also looking at your local nonprofits and other developers, and ensuring that you're supporting their efforts at building more housing. Because when you're having those public meetings and you have NIMBY, so not in my backyard folks coming out, it's important that the local officials also hear the very positive voices as well, to verify what those needs are. So, sound good? Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks, Allison. Kathy?
Hi, Allison. Can you talk a bit about your mobile home park oversight program and what that does, and if there are some more legislation changes coming up that you know of?
Okay, very good. So 2019, I believe it was, there was a bill passed for mobile home park oversight, and that created what we call the MPOP team. And so that required mobile home parks to register with the state. So they register mobile home parks with us. With that, that allows us to understand, how many units, mobile home or manufactured housing units there are around the state. There was additional legislation passed because there was really no enforcement mechanism with that. And so there was legislation passed that clarified that there would be a complaint system where both tenants or homeowners, and I should say homeowners and landowners could submit complaints for consideration by the state. There was additional legislation then passed that allowed the state to provide fines or to issue fines, and also cease and desist orders. It's actually been pretty eye-opening, is what I would say, at the number of times we've needed to do cease and desist orders, because people don't have access to potable water, which means they don't have a toilet, they don't have water to drink. And then the time that it takes for that water to be turned back on. And so these laws that have been passed to support the mobile home park programs have really been valuable tools in ensuring people have safe, decent places to live. And so that's a little bit about that program. Were there particular questions that you had about it?
Just kind of wondering if there are some things on the horizon as far as new legislation next year that you know of.
That is a good question, Kathy. I am not sure if there will be. I know that there have been some legislators that have been very active with this. Oftentimes, when we go through the rulemaking, I've seen some legislation kind of follow suit in what the rules that we promulgated have done. But at this point in time, I'm not aware of any pending legislation.
And any staff increases? I know they had a huge backlog, and I guess they're making their way through it, but are they gonna be able to add staff, or are they pretty much static now?
That is a good question. They watch very carefully. I'll say the legislature watches very carefully about our staffing. We did have a backlog, and we did catch up on that by the end of the calendar year. And so now we're working to maintain that process. I do want to note something about that, though. As we caught up on our backlog, what we found is an increase in the number of appeals to the decisions, which is also not a surprise as well. So they're going through that process, through the appeal process as well. Marilyn, did you have a question?
Yes. Is there an update on the construction defect law for this year?
The construction defect law was signed into law by the governor. I think it was last week. I don't have the specific details of that, but I do know that it was just signed into law by the governor.
Allison, I don't remember how to raise my hand. I noted that you also included in your mission statement addressing concerns of homelessness, and I think you didn't speak to that specifically.
I did not. We have lots of, I think, very positive things on the horizon. So let me touch base on those things. So I do believe many of you are probably familiar with our Fort Lyon effort that we are working on in Bent County. And that is for people coming from homelessness with challenges of addiction. And so we are building off of that effort with the Ridgeview development out in Arapahoe County. And so we're planning to expand. So the Ridgeview campus was a campus in eastern Arapahoe County. It was a youth services campus, so it actually housed a school. And the state vacated it several years ago. And so that is being remodeled and refurbished to do something similar to Fort Lyon for between 200 and 250 residents, I think. But one thing that we have found with Fort Lyon is we really can't, or we don't have treatment services. Fort Lyon is based on the 12-step model, voluntary model, and what we found is we needed more treatment options. And so with Ridgeview, it will have that supportive community similar to Fort Lyon, but it will be expanded to have expanded treatment options as well. And so we're excited about that. We anticipate that it will start opening and serving people in the next year and a half. And so excited about that. Also, with the pandemic dollars, we funded navigation campuses in the metro area. And so those are intended to be like one-stop shops where a person can come in and determine what resources might be available in their community, whether it be housing, whether it be a connection to mental health services. They're intended to be a place where people find the resources that they need for their housing stability needs. Let's see, what else do we have going on? The state, so this is beyond the Division of Housing, the Medicaid agency CMS at the federal level approved the state's 1115 waiver. And what that allows is the state to use Medicaid dollars for housing and services. And so excited about that. And so that is going to be rolled out in the next year. I don't have the specifics, but that's a really exciting thing. Yes, on the Medicaid front. So many good things are happening on the homelessness efforts that the state's making.
Is that sort of coordinated through your regional staff, or how is that getting disseminated throughout the state?
So that's a good question. It's probably a little bit of both and. So HCPF, Healthcare Policy and Financing, is the lead agency with the 1115 waiver. And so we provide match dollars with the housing and services funds. And so that will be done likely more through our service partners that we work with around the state that work in both like the regional housing authorities and the regional communal health centers that we work with in administering our vouchers. They're likely to be point on that. But right now there's a lot of planning with HCPF that we're doing.
Thank you. It's exciting.
There are a lot of exciting things happening for sure.
Marilyn?
Yes. Have you been impacted by any federal cuts in money?
So we administer lots of different funds from the federal side, both for housing development and also like housing vouchers. And so the president's budget does include eliminating our housing like grant and loan funds. And then on the voucher side or housing voucher side, he has proposed to block grant all funds to the states. Mm-hmm. These are proposals that have been made before. The president in his first administration had proposed to cut the housing grant and loan funds. And the funds were not actually cut by Congress because Congress is the one that actually makes the budget. And then the block granting of housing voucher funds, that was actually proposed in President Bush's administration, and it did not actually move forward as block granting of funds. And so we are working to ensure that whatever changes are made are changes that hopefully makes good sense in how we operate our programs. And so those are active conversations. But I do want you to know that these things have been proposed before; they just haven't moved forward.
Great, thanks for clarifying that,
Mm-hmm.
Allison. How about Jill?
I'm appreciative of your positive outlook on everything, but it looks as though Congress is passing a budget that's going to have some very serious cuts in it. And one of those being Medicaid, and I just wondered how that was going to impact the 1115. Because if there's no money, then there's no money.
I have concerns. I'm more in tune with the housing world and know about proposals that have been made before that have not actually followed through. We are in a different Congress. And so that does concern me, but I do know that there is support on both sides of the aisle because these programs really impact all jurisdictions regardless of affiliation. And so my concern is that with everything being proposed, I'm afraid something's going to stick. And so I think that we need to be very cognizant of all proposals and advocating for the things that we know have the greatest impact. On Medicaid, I'm not an expert on Medicaid and I'm not involved in CMS. And so it's difficult for me to really have a finger on the pulse with Medicaid. That said, I do think that there is broad support for Medicaid. My concern is about limiting the eligibility of the program. And so I'm not sure exactly where that is going to end up.
Kathy.
So what are the top 2 lessons learned that you're going to tell your successor?
Oh, my predecessor actually told me, and I have found this to be so true. He said, if there's a decision that's made that doesn't make sense, it's politics. And so that's probably number one. Such a good question. I'm thinking about that. And so, my partner, my husband, he is with a private company, and we've actually kind of mirrored one another quite a bit in how things have changed throughout time. And as we compare stories, it's always surprising to us how similar our stories actually are. And I don't think that people outside of public service perceive things that way. And I have a tremendous appreciation and respect for public servants and for the work that government does and is intended to do, because it doesn't happen but for the public need, the public want, and the public effort to get it done. We are not here to take the place of markets. We're here to serve people the best that we can in the way that we want humans to be treated within our state.
Yeah.
And I think, staying focused on that is critical.
Well said. And if I could ask you, Allison, if there'd be one policy or piece of legislation that would really impact housing in the next 3 years, and you could wave that wand, what would it be?
I think my wand would be waved for housing vouchers. The federal government plays an incredible role in housing vouchers. They support not only our regular market, they also support individuals that need it most.
Mhm.
The state also has housing vouchers. And if I had my magic wand, I would wave it for both federal and state, the expansion of the voucher programs.
Great, thank you. So, does anyone else have any parting questions or comments for Allison? If not, we say thank you so much, Allison, for sharing your Monday evening with us, and we wish you the best as you begin your new adventures. And thanks for all you've done to impact housing in so many positive ways in Colorado over the years. So,
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
thank you. And if you send your slides my way, we'll get them on our website, and I'll make sure that all those in attendance, that we get them sent out to you as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. And thank you everyone else for coming.